Welcome to All About Art. My name is Alexandra, and I'm an art historian, curator, and writer. Within this podcast, topics relating to art history, cultural policy, the art sector, as well as a large range of other art-related topics will be covered. Conducting critical discussions, having entertaining exchanges, or just enjoying some relaxing chats, All About Art is where you'll find it all. Join me in exploring and developing cultural discourse. Welcome to another episode of All About Art. In this episode, I sat down with Eleanor and Amelia Stallworthy, who directed the Norman Rea Gallery, the only student-run gallery in the UK, which is located at the University of York. I speak to Eleanor and Amelia about how running this gallery at uni has positively impacted their careers now, and what it means to gain professional experiences early on. We talk about the ins and outs of how a student-run gallery functions, looking at how they got into their leadership roles, and what it looked like when they were in them. This episode is produced in the hopes that maybe if you're a student listening in, or if you're working at a university, that this can inspire more people to think about starting these initiatives that give tools to students before they graduate from the degrees in art subjects. Thank you, Eleanor and Amelia, for coming on the podcast. Before we dive into the episode, I want to take a minute of your time to mention that All About Art is on Patreon. We are mostly volunteer-led, but in order to cover running costs and other expenses, we make it possible for our lovely listeners to support us, ranging from £1 a month to the price of an oat latte a month, or on the higher end, the price of a Sunday brunch per month, depending on the tier you want to choose. If every person who listens to the podcast signed up for the £1 tier on our Patreon, we would be able to sustain the podcast while also having scope to produce episodes more frequently and expand our activities in demystifying the professional arts sector. So, if you want to receive early access to episodes and behind-the-scenes content, maybe you want to get some merch, or if you just love what we do and want to support us, I would be thrilled if you considered signing up. The link to the Patreon is in the show notes. And now, on to the interview. Also, thank you to our sponsors at Synergy Associates, the art world tech gurus, for supporting this episode's production at their clubhouse on Pall Mall. You can find more about Synergy and their facilities in the show notes. Welcome to the podcast, Amelia and Eleanor. To start us off, let's set the tone and give people a little bit of context on what you do. We'll be talking about a specific important professional experience that you had at university while running the Norman Rea Gallery as co-directors, but I would love to talk to you about what you're both doing now. Can you give me a little rundown of your bios?
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm Eleanor. So I studied history of art at the University of York, and that's how me and Amelia met. Whilst I was there, I was part of the Norman Rea Gallery as just a member, just helping curate exhibitions. Then was able to transition into head of press and publicity, and then one of the co-directors. And then once I'd graduated, I managed to get a job as an art consultant for a company called Art and Offices, which kind of says what it does on the tin. We supply artwork for offices, and then we also do creative events for staff and teams, which is really exciting. And just recently, I've also got another job at the Young V&A as a front of house assistant. So I'm bridging two very different parts of the art world, which is great. I get to use very different parts of my brain. And, you know, when I'm saying to my family what I've done at work for Art and Offices, I went to a client and I pitched some artwork for their office. And then when I come back from the Young V&A, I said, I pretended to be a horse with a child. It's wildly different, and it really suits me at the moment. And also this year, I've been part of the youth collective at the V&A. So we get more insight into careers in the museum and the art world. And then we also got to help with organising events at the V&A. So I helped lead a panel discussion and some activities at their Friday Lates, which if you haven't been to, it's great. It's where the V&A stays open late at the last Friday of the month. And it's great. There's lots of live music, events, activities, workshops. It's really fun. So it's been a busy year since graduating.
Yeah. And we're going to get on to sort of how your experience directing the student-led gallery influences what you do today. But first, Amelia, how about you?
Hiya! Thank you again so much for having us on the podcast. It means absolutely the world to us to be able to talk about Norman Rea Gallery. So yeah, again, I went to the University of York. I did English and History of Art because I couldn't make my mind up between the two, so I did both.
and again became a member of Norman Ray and eventually worked up to be an events organiser and then co-director with Eleanor. Since then, I've held a position as a visitor assistant for National Museums Liverpool, working primarily at the World Museum, which is just such an fabulous set of museums in Liverpool, showcasing Liverpool culture to renowned artists. So there's a lot going on, NML. And I also work at the Bose Museum as a marketing and communications coordinator. The Bose Museum is in the Northeast, and it was founded by Josephine and John Bose, and it hosts a diverse exhibition program and learning program, which I market all aspects of. And then I also do things from writing copy for press and websites and external listings. And then I've also currently set up a little Instagram account called The Art Prin, which is a reference to my Scouse heritage. Prin means princess girl in Scouse terminology. We also like to say the in front of everything. So we go the Asda, the Tesco. So the Art Prin, I hope, will uplift Northern voices and Northern institutions and just showcase the incredible diversity of the arts in the North. So yeah, that's what I'm currently up to.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. And on the topic of the Norman Ray Gallery, I think this is one of the only student-run galleries that I know of, at least in the UK. I think it's the only student-run gallery in the UK. And it's an interesting jumping-off point for students who want to have a career in the arts. So I want to ask you both about your experience as co-directors. First off, what were your responsibilities in your role? What did you do?
Yeah, it was kind of the spiel that we would always give when we were promoting the gallery. We were talking about to anyone. I found in every single job interview where I've spoken about it, I've always said it's the only student-run gallery in the UK, and it's plastered all over our Instagram and our website. So it's something that we're really proud of. So as co-directors, we led a team of 12 people. So it was multi-departmental. So there was events, head of press and publicity, photographers, gallery assistants. It's like a mini gallery in a way.
I love how you say mini gallery when most galleries like have that size, like in London.
I don't know. It's sort of this little space on campus. It's sort of, I don't know, if you've never been to the University of York, it's quite tucked away. I remember when I visited, actually it was the first day that I was moving in to university, because I'd never visited before because I joined after COVID, so I'd never been able to visit the university. But the main reason I wanted to come was because of the gallery. So I remember on my first day trying to find it, and it was impossible. And me and my parents going on a mad goose hunt trying to find it. But it's a lovely little space. So it's a team of 12 of us that we led, and we did all of the exhibition planning. So from coming up with a concept right up until the opening night. And we had a whole program of events that we'd do throughout the academic year. So they would we'd have 4 exhibitions, and we'd have different themes for the exhibitions, and then we'd have different events which would go alongside the exhibition to sort of give a bit more of a holistic idea of the concept and the themes that we were trying to convey. So that's kind of what we were doing in our roles. If you want to give an example of how that worked.
So one of our favourite exhibitions that we ran was actually our last exhibition that we did together, called The Grand Finale, which was all about exploring kind of like art that was just so celebratory and so just fun and like decorative. And we had a glitter ball, which was just gorgeous. And yeah, so that exhibition had different interactive elements. We had a diva pyramid where we ranked different divas, and Divine came up on top of the pyramid. We even had one of our lecturers in the English department did an amazing talk about Grace Jones, which was really interesting. And then we had a drag night with my brother, Crudy Dench, and we ran a Butch Femme Press night where that was queer poetry, and that was just a beautiful evening. And then we had a event called Yassified Objects and made them all glittery. And that was just, an example of the different types of exhibitions. I mean, in our time, we ran Art Speak, which explored language and art and how they're intrinsically linked. We did the first ever wholly LGBTQ plus exhibition called Queer. And it really was, I think, a safe space for people on campus, people being able to express themselves freely, people able to see different artworks. And we supported so many early career artists as well, and people later on in their career. And it's just, an incredible space on the University of York campus.
How did you guys source artists? Was it like from the art school? Is there an art school at University of York?
No. So this is what makes Norman Ray Gallery amazing. It was sort of this creative hub on campus because there is no fine art degree that you can take. You can join Art Society if you want to do that outside of your degree, but there is no way to actually formally study it unless you want to do history of art. I found one of the misconceptions with history of art that I still get today is people saying, oh, so did you make art as part of your degree? And I don't understand that. It's history of art. The way I explain it is, well, if you did an English literature degree, you don't write a book, you study books. I sort of explain history of art in the same way.
Yeah.
There isn't a way to study fine art on campus. There is another university in York called York St. John, which do a fine art degree. So we'd source a lot of our artists from there. But a lot of the times it was just a case of going online and doing research, finding artists through Instagram or people that you knew personally, or going to art schools and seeing recent graduates, looking at grad shows and getting artists that way as well. So it was a whole range of ways to get artists.
Yeah, lots of sliding in DMs and messaging people. And I think one of the things is there was so much trust by other people, and so much when they found out about Norman Ray and what it represented, they were like, wow, this sounds like really cool. Like, we'd love to be a part of it, because they'd heard nothing like it before. And yeah, it was definitely a lot of trust for them to pass over their art objects to us and entrust us with handling and displaying them correctly. And we just thank all the people who continue to support Norman Ray in so many ways by showcasing their art with us.
And my next question would actually be like how you guys got the job, but I think that it's a really suitable thing right now. I would love to ask you about that support, and also more particularly about the pecuniary support, about the financials of it. How did the funding work? Did you make money off of sales, like a gallery? Was it that sort of model? Was it a mixture with like university funding? Did you get philanthropists, individual giving? Because I remember when I was president of the UCL Art Business Society, it was the first year that the society existed. So I didn't get any university funding. But I know that the years after me were getting university funding. Like, the university would give them a certain budget each year, and that would be allocated. And then obviously they would make the rest of their funding through ticket sales.
The funding primarily came through York University Students' Union. So what we'd have to do every committee year, you apply for funding. So they'll have certain things, certain criteria, certain things that you can apply for. And you'd have to write a grant application explaining what you needed the funding for, why you needed it. And we'd also have to supply evidence. So whether that be like visitor responses to like previous exhibitions and workshops we've done, to like the actual financial records that we kept as well.
I remember we had to do an inventory of everything in our storage cupboard, which took forever, because our storage cupboard, it was just like a nightmare.
What was in the storage cupboard? You mean like art, or what sort of stuff was in there?
That was a giant trolley.
The trusty trolley, which was very useful.
That was good.
To get up to the gallery. Art supplies, nails, hammers.
Oh, just like everything. It was like the cupboard that had everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Weird mannequin bodies. There was all sorts of things in there, but we had to do an inventory of everything that we had to sort of justify, okay, these are the things that we would be spending money on. Weird mannequins. Well, mainly art supplies and nails and things like that.
Yeah, because how else are you going to hang an exhibition? Exactly. Did you guys hang your own exhibitions? Like, were you guys also the art handlers? So you would like go and put the nails in the walls, measure it, make sure it's straight, use the little, what is it called? A spirit level.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lots of polyfiller. I will say Derwent College, the walls are quite weak. So we used to have to paint the exhibitions like walls every time we did an exhibition.
I remember the first time I went to an install day. I was a little fresh. I was 18 years old, and someone just like handed me a hammer and was like, there you go. And it was a baptism by fire, but it's a great way to get stuck in as well, and sort of having that responsibility when you're so young, and that autonomy to not just curate a show and source the artwork, but actually understand, okay, how is it going to work in the space? How do we want people to engage with it? And physically being able to do that and seeing that all coming together throughout the day was, super, super satisfying.
Yeah. I think that, like, truly coming from a perspective of someone who's been in the sector now for nearly a decade, just under a decade, and having worked in galleries, having recruited, looked for interns, I think that a lot of people would so appreciate and want someone who has had a hammer in their hands at 18 years old, probably smashing their fingers more times than you'd care to admit. But having someone who has taken that initiative, who had that experience, who, you know, when you step into a gallery, a big like blue chip gallery here in Mayfair down the road, we're surrounded by these world-class galleries. And I think that sometimes these gallerists, like, this is exactly what they would be looking for. And so I think it's such a shame that this isn't a model that is adopted at different universities. Like, I'm thinking back to my days at UCL. UCL has Slade. Slade is one of the best like fine art universities that you can attend. It's literally top tier. When someone says I graduated from Slade, it is a big deal. And I studied history of art at UCL, and we had no interaction with the Slade students at all. We weren't put together. There was no sort of idea of what your career could look like down the road, but you have all the resources. They have a UCL like mini museum. I bet they could have a space to open a little gallery. Like, why that's not happening, not just at UCL, but across a lot of different universities, where it could really push someone's career forward and propel them from the moment they step out of university. Because, I mean, 18 years old and you're holding a hammer, and it sounds so silly when I say that, but like, I think that intrinsically there's a level of confidence that you were able to build, confidence and a professionality. I mean, I told you guys when you guys pitched to me, I'm going to be really frank here. I don't interview fresh students. I don't speak to people who just came out of university. That's not what I do. People have tried it before. They have pitched themselves to me to talk about what it means. And your pitch was so strong and professional, and you took the time to tell me what you were there for. You learned that through years, or like a year, but also a few years of like working on, like at the gallery, not as directors, and then being directors and seeing what sort of skills you need to make an impact, to get people to fund you, to get people to talk to you, to get people to show with you. That comes from experience. There's no other way you're going to gain that.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I went on a little monologue there, but I think it's important to actually really have this discussion. And like, would you guys both agree that that is what it gave you in having this? Because maybe we should like lobby universities to do more of these.
Yeah. I think sometimes with the art world, and I mean, it's a different experience because York didn't have an art school. But talking to some of my other friends who've gone to universities where there is art there, it just feels so segmented and isolated, and there's no conversations going on between history of art students and artists or even English literature students. Like, all of the arts sort of overlap, so why shouldn't you be talking to each other? And the physicality of handling an artwork as well. I mean, during our history of art degrees, we didn't actually really physically see objects a lot of the time. Like in our seminars, you wouldn't be able to handle artworks a lot of the time. So sorry to interrupt, but are there a lot of museums near the University of York? There's the art gallery.
Yeah, you've got York Museums Trust, which operates a number of sites in York. And then you've got the Jorvik Centre, which is dedicated to Vikings.
It's got a Viking ride. I'd highly recommend it. It's all immersive, so it feels like you're in a Viking village, which is quite fun.
The one good thing with York, like in terms of location, you can get so many trains to different places. So Leeds Art Gallery, you can go up north to the Baltic, and you can go down to the Hepworth. Like, there's so many different places which are accessible, but yeah, the opportunities for student placements are few and far between. And it's that competitive nature, which is like to secure those placements. So to have something like NRG and to allow anyone to get involved. I mean, we had over 100 members who would come on these install days, And they've written about it in job applications, being like, I've handled artwork. And
so, sorry, what does it mean as a member? So you're part of the committee, but then there's also, they were members. So it does kind of function a little bit like a university society.
Yeah, definitely it was a student society. I mean, like going back to the funding question, a lot of our funding came from membership. So it was about £5 to join for the whole year. But you got to see so many exhibitions and be a part of them and be a part of the events. So it was definitely worth a £5.
Oh, so if you weren't a member, you couldn't come to the exhibition opening, for example. That was members only?
No. So everyone could come to the exhibitions. Members only would be, sometimes we'd do discounted tickets for, say, for example, the drag night. And some are like install days would be kind of more lean towards members, just to create that community aspect of seeing people like all the time and not having to teach everyone again and again how to use a spirit level and things. But yeah, so we primarily got funding from people buying memberships. And then we also ran pop-ups. The vice director in our committee had this great idea of like, let's like bring loads of artists, crafters, makers into the space. And our pop-ups were highly successful. So definitely credit to her. And then we made our own merch. We have stickers right in front of us now. And we had tote bags, which definitely were a hit. Many an NRG tote bag were bought. But yeah, and we did often sometimes sell art and we'd take a 20% commission. So we did kind of run like a normal gallery. So yeah, that was kind of like an overview of the different fundings that we'd get. Yeah.
Well, if you think about funding models today, you see a lot of galleries. I don't know if you guys follow sort of what's going on with a lot of the larger galleries closing, choosing to step back from the art world, a lot of these like big mega dealers. And there's this really great Instagram account. I think it's Art Not News instead of ArtNet News. And they basically made a statement. They were like, we're noticing that the younger gallerists, the people who are coming on the scene, they're looking more to foster community. They're not looking to build an empire. And so there are a lot of different alternative revenue streams that I think nowadays arts professionals need to be looking at when they want to launch a business. Even if it's a traditional gallery model, if you have the overhead costs of like having a physical space, you're going to need to cover that. And sometimes, at least right now, it's not going to be purely through art sales. I mean, I myself run a membership platform. It's not a gallery, but I have to think about, okay, what events do we open to the public? Why do I want to open this to the public? How do I make sure that my members feel really valued? I got on the phone and talked to each and every one of them that gave me a time slot that they wanted to chat to me. So for 3 days straight, every half an hour for 20 minutes with 10-minute breaks in between, I was chatting to the members of NextGen to be like, okay, what is valuable? And maybe I should produce NextGen tote bags. But like, it's these sorts of things, this sort of entrepreneurial thinking that is so valuable, in my opinion, that every arts organization can be not grateful, but that every arts organization that you might apply to would find very attractive. But yeah, and so funding. So you had memberships, you had support from the university, and you had art sales. Okay, very cool. And how did you both apply? What was it like in terms of actually getting the job? So you were a member and then you were part of the committee as PR. So it kind of like developed over the years that you were involved. Or did someone hire you? Did you get voted in? How does that work?
So it kind of works like any other university society. So you have to be a member first and foremost. And then we sort of created a manifesto where we said why we wanted to go for art roles. So when I was in first year, it would have been around March, April time of my first year is when they would change the committees. So I put myself forward for head of press and publicity. Didn't have any real social media experience, marketing experience at all. But it's sort of, again, what we were talking about, having that ability to advocate for yourself and demonstrating, okay, I don't have all of the technical experience, but I have the passion for it and I have that willingness to learn. So that's kind of how I pitched myself and became head of press and publicity for the year. And then we were saying before the podcast started, we had this lovely moment when we would have been in our second year. So I was head of press and publicity, Amelia was head of events, and we were having our committee meal. And there were sort of discussions going around. I'm like, oh, what are you going to be applying for? Are you going to be applying for this? And we were sat at opposite ends of the table, and we sort of we had this look, and it's just this way that you can communicate with your eyes. And we just said to each other, co-director. And then we grabbed a coffee the next day, and we just put together our pitch. So we created a manifesto of why we wanted to be directors, why we thought our roles that we'd had that year as events and press and publicity would work really well together as a co-directorship.
Because before there wasn't a co-director, there was just one director.
So 2 years before we joined Norman Ray Gallery, there was just one director, no vice directors either. And honestly, I do not understand how it was done. It seemed deeply stressful, and it's just great having that director team, like that senior leadership team, where we were able to manage everything together and support each other. So we were the third year where there had been two directors rather than one director. So it's there had been a precedent set already. There would be multiple directors. Yeah, so we just had a manifesto, and we said what we wanted to bring to the gallery, and people voted us in, which was lovely.
Yeah, I will say, like, the manifestos and those election evenings, they were so daunting, especially in first year when you're still kind of getting to know who you are and getting to know your community.
No idea. And if I had to do that in my first, oh my God.
It was you had to stand up in front of everyone.
Yeah.
It was really so intense.
I ended up in my first year applying for members officer, and I didn't get that. And then I had to rerun to become events organizer, which was quite brave looking back, like going back and being like, I'm going to run again. But people really put so much energy into being part of like Norman Ray. And we, in our last elections, like some people ended up not getting on committee, and people were quite like emotional about it because they put in so much energy. But there's still ways to be a part of NRG. And I think we tried to make, in our time at NRG, much more democratic and giving everyone a chance to try and get involved. So in our directorship, it was normally the precedent that the directors would control all of the exhibitions. And we were like, nope, we want more voices in this, more kind of ideas. So the co-vices, they ran an exhibition. And then we also opened it up to the rest of committee. So they pitched us different exhibitions, and then we had a vote on which exhibition we wanted to put forth. And that just allowed so many different voices and so many different people to get experience. And if they didn't end up doing an exhibition, we also said, run an event, like take it, like run it from start to finish, of like concept to writing risk assessments to producing like content for social media to promote it. So everyone had the chance to become, I guess, a jack of all trades at NRG as well. Yeah.
I think that is a really important lesson, especially for early career arts professionals and for people. I'm kind of mid-career, and I'm actually just still ever trying to learn this. And this lesson that I'm talking about is that you don't have to fit into a specific mold. Thinking outside the box and being creative with how you approach things can be so valuable. Number one, to both shake it up a little bit, because not everything needs to be done the way that it always was done. But also number two, to kind of give yourself confidence in your own opinions, in your own ideas, to try them out and see if they work, to make a decision and learn from it. And I think that something like that is so incredibly valuable, because down the line, it will help you in your career. And which brings me to my next question. When you think about how it's impacted your career now, I mean, you guys, when did you graduate? Last year, right?
Last year, yeah.
Last year. So it's still a very fresh career. But in the last year that you've been working, you know, you explained the jobs that you work in, the different roles and experiences that you're gaining right now. How do you think that this experience with this student-led gallery, with the Norman Ray Gallery, how do you think that that has impacted what you do? How has it sort of defined what you do?
I think what Amelia was just saying now about how the gallery allowed you to try out lots of different things, especially as directors, because we had to oversee everything. We were having conversations with the gallery assistants about inventory and install, logistics, shipping. But then we were also having conversations with our graphic designer about the visuals that we wanted to create for the exhibitions. So you had to sort of dip your toes into everything. And it's kind of bled into the way that my career, my very early career in its infancy, looks now, in that I'm doing two very different jobs. And to some people, that might seem really hectic and crazy, but it really works for me because I'm able to use different parts of my brain and different parts of my skill set, which I've learnt from Norman Ray. So, for example, at Arts and Offices, being an art consultant, putting together pictures and being able to source artworks, and also being able to talk to artists as well. Going back to that point, we were saying how the art world can feel so segmented in university between fine art students, history of art students, or whatever the degrees are. Actually being able to talk to artists and being able to understand the needs of artists is a really important skill, which I use all the time in my job. Being able to understand, how do you actually put up this artwork in this office? How is it going to work on this surface? The scale of a sculpture in this lobby, I wouldn't have had that if I didn't have that physical understanding of handling objects. Even though I don't do it now, we have a whole tech team and I say, this goes here and this goes there. But having that understanding of, I know what they're going to be doing. And with my other job, sort of being able to create this fun, accessible, engaging way of appreciating artwork with little kids, obviously not comparing university students to little children, but it sort of works in a similar way of being able to create a space which is joyful and happy, and it feels like anyone can walk through the door and can have a great day experiencing artwork. That's been a really important skill, those sort of interpersonal skills that I've learnt from Norman Ray. So it's been amazing. And again, this theme of advocacy keeps coming up, I think, whilst we're talking, of being able to advocate for yourself, especially at the moment. The job market across all industries, but especially in the arts, is horrendous and it's very difficult to get a job. So being able to advocate for yourself and actually take pride in the projects and experiences which you've accumulated at a young age, that you do have the skills, you do have the experience, and being able to translate that has been a really important part of my career journey so far.
Definitely. I echo all of that. And I think especially like the amount of interviews I've gone for and like any of their questions that they throw at me, the first thing I bring up is Norman Ray. And everyone's like, wait, what's that? Like, and just amazed by how we have it at the University of York. And it's just such an amazing resource for us. And yeah, every job interview, I mean, like since graduating, I probably applied for over 50 jobs, like across the sector and across the north, because I was willing to move anywhere, even from the big city of Liverpool to the tiny town of Barnard Castle. And yeah, I remember my interview for the Bose Museum, and like the people who interviewed me were just astounded that it existed. And I remember asking the question, and this is really cheeky of me. I was like, oh, when they ask, do you have any questions for us? And I said, like, what were you doing at my age? And the answers that they gave were incredibly different to the careers that they had now. And they were like, we weren't doing anything like what you're doing, but what you're doing is just so worth it for this type of career. And yeah, I learned so much from Norman Ray, especially that I transferred into my job now. I mean, I write a lot of press releases, and we did that at Norman Ray. We'd sit down, kind of capture the exhibition, capture the main messages, explain why we were doing it. And I remember when I was like first told to write a press release, I actually like Googled Norman Ray and looked at our old press releases, and just to see kind of the style and stuff, but obviously adapt it to the tone of voice and brand guidelines of the Bose. But yeah, I just learned so much, and I continue to bring NRG up in meetings that I have with like colleagues, because we need to start thinking differently, especially in the North. I think in the South, there's so many Gen Z people who are interested in art, like finding out about Tate Modern is extending its hours till 9 p.m. on a Friday and Saturday. Like the North needs to kind of adapt to that, and it needs to adapt to a younger generation and demographic. And I think so many of the things that we did in Norman Ray really appealed to that generation. So that needs to, again, be transferred. And yeah, it's just taught me a lot. And then even with again, we were a jack of all trades. We did everything from a bit of social media to the website to putting things up in the gallery. But even with my own personal things, because I do a bit of freelance writing and then run the art print, that's taught me so much about how to target a specific audience demographic and get them interested, get them going to exhibitions, because this generation is going to transform the art industry and going to have to deal with a lot of things, even with the climate crisis and other things that are so pertinent and world issues we react to. And I just think NRG did that so well. I mean, again, going back to that queer exhibition that we ran, the fact that it was the first one, it's a bit sad because we should have had one generations before, but I think at that point in time, that was just the perfect time to do it.
And I think today it's the biggest exhibition that we've done.
Yeah.
I think we exhibited 37 artists in our space, and it's not a huge space. It's like a sort of white cube space. So we have one sort of squarish space, and then we have the corridor, which is just long and uninspiring. But when it's an exhibition opening night and we have things suspended from the ceilings and decoration, and we'll have a band playing as well. I can't remember how many people we had showing up to that exhibition, but I remember just talking to my friends and mutual friends, and everyone was there. They said everyone they knew was in that exhibition. And it was just such an amazing space to see people who probably haven't engaged with artwork before, because again, we're tucked away, but we were above the student bar. So a lot of the time we'd be a bit cheeky and we'd go down to the student bar and we would just go around to people's tables and be like, there's an exhibition going on, there's music going on. They'd be like, oh, right, okay, didn't know about that. They'd bring up their drinks and they'd come up and enjoy artwork. It was amazing to just see so many different people in that space. And I think that's one of the values which I've carried on into my career, and having this values-led approach to how I go about my career now, that Norman Ray sort of taught me the importance of creating accessible interactions with artwork is really important to me. And that's how I kind of want to go forward with my career as it blossoms.
Well, I think so. Not only was Norman Ray a really amazing opportunity for people who want to work in the arts to gain experience doing something akin to working at a gallery, not even akin, it is working at a gallery with a little bit of a different structure, but then you get even more experience in all of these kind of alternative ways to do things too, i.e. the memberships and whatnot. But because you're going down to the student bar and you're like, oh, come and look at this, come and look at this. Maybe someone who has never engaged with art in their entire life, who's never put set foot in a gallery, who doesn't really know, or who may not have known or felt confident enough to get into the art space, because sometimes it can be really intimidating. Their barriers might have been broken down. You don't know if it was one person or 10 or 100 people who you might have impacted as co-directors of Norman Ray to be like, oh, let's engage more with art, because we can have all the cultural professionals wanting to work in the sector in the world. We can have as many as we want, but it doesn't really mean anything if we don't have that counterpart to it, which is also the people who consume the art. And in the world we live in, it is a capitalist society, also the people that collect art, even on a minor level with a small budget. I'm not talking about the millions and millions of pounds that we see at auction. All of these things are very, very important pieces, or I guess cogs, within the art world machine. And when you are running a gallery and, thinking about your own experiences and the own lessons that you learned, it's also really strong, I think, to take into consideration. And I guess for anyone listening who maybe works at a university or who is a student at a university and who wants to make a difference, that's even one more reason to start a student-led gallery at a university, is that's how you break down barriers. Arts funding has been slashed, I guess, in the last 10 years, over 50% by the government. And there are less than 8 state schools, I think, in the UK that have history of art at A levels. So where are you going to get the engagement? How are you going to show people that this is not a scary industry? It is and it isn't. You know what I mean? Once you're in it, it's not scary. But to get in it can be really hard.
Absolutely. I mean, with the gallery before I joined, it was the main reason that I chose York for studying history of art was the gallery. That was the reason I went to York. Obviously, the course was great and you have to go for the course and the city and everything else. But that was the main reason that I went. But even though that was the reason I wanted to go to York, I remember going to the gallery for the first time and kind of having that sort of that nervous moment of, is this a space for me? Even as a space which is for students, when I first came to university, it felt like it wasn't completely for me. So actually then entering that space and realizing, oh, everyone's really lovely. If you just talk to people, I think that's the issue. We're just not having those conversations and that openness to have conversations with people, to bring them into the art space, to consume art, to buy art, to talk about art is really, really important.
And I think going off that, those conversations, actually like listening to what people have to say and acting on it as well. I mean, we definitely changed our approach throughout like the 2 years we were on committee, and changed how we went about like after parties, and we went around certain events because we realized there's some barriers and we need to either break them or like make sure like people can even physically get in the space. I mean, the Norman Ray was only as accessible by a staircase and a lift. Sometimes that lift would be out of order, and like the importance of making sure people can access a space and be able to wander around and enjoy art, I think is just so important. And yeah, I remember having so many conversations with different individuals being like, I didn't even know this was here, and telling them all about it, and then them coming up for the next exhibition was just so amazing. And I think just the way we can work together, especially as Gen Z, is incredible. I recently wrote an article for the Museums Association, the Museums Journal, and it was called Take a Chance on Me, the Importance of Investing in Gen Z, because I do think it's a bit of give and take, and a sense of like Gen Z do need to work hard for the roles, but I think older generations do need to realise the different ideas that they're bringing to the table and kind of having that open communication. And I think Gen Z is very experimental. I mean, you think about all the different like art accounts on social media and all the different ways you can go about having a career. You think about, say, for instance, like Art UK, you can pitch in and write for them. And there's different vehicles, and I think Gen Z is very good at finding those vehicles and being like, is this right for me? And working out very quickly. But I do think Gen Z is definitely a hardworking generation. I mean, with like how the art market is now, it has to be a hardworking generation. It has to think differently and volunteer more past generations and get into different collectives like Eleanor's in to get into those spaces. But yeah, it's definitely a hard work. I mean, you work hard, Eleanor. Like, you're always busy, especially doing the 2 jobs. Yeah.
It can be quite busy, but I was just going to take this back to Norman Ray. I've never worked with more motivated people than I have done at Norman Ray. I mean, we'd be doing our in-store days 10 a.m. on Saturdays, which obviously isn't early in the grand scheme of things. But when you're a student, you've gone out the night before and you're slightly hungover, to take yourself willingly to go and put some nails in the wall and hang up some artwork, and just the inspiration and like motivation in the gallery space on those Saturdays were always my favourite. In-store days were always my favourite, because everyone was just like really buzzing to get everything up on the walls, like to see all of your hard work come to life, and everyone showing up for the opening nights. Everyone would be there. Every single person from committee. There wouldn't be someone who's saying, oh, I've got to, I need to finish this essay. And obviously it's very important at university, do your degree, get your degree. But people were willing to take time, they'd come from a seminar straight to a gallery meeting to share which artists they'd found.
I want to ask you my very last question and bring this episode to a close. And that is, I don't know why I'm reading this. Every time I read it, and I'm like, I've asked this question literally over 70 times. If you could pick one artist from art history to have dinner with, who would it be and why?
I'm going to say Artemisia Gentileschi. I remember when I found out about history of art as a topic that you could study
as
a concept. I remember it was during my A-levels. I was 16, 17, had absolutely no idea what I wanted to study at university. And it was just a conversation I had with one of my teachers. He said, "Oh, you like history and you like art, history of art?" I was like, "What? That's a thing?" So then I just started consuming any book that I could get my hands on. And it was Why Have There Been No Great Women Artists by Linda Nochlin, which is a seminal essay. Would recommend it if you've never read it. And
not even recommend. You have to go read it if you've never read it. Sorry, but like...
Yes, it's required. It's required.
Actually required reading if you want to sit at our table.
Yes. And it spoke about Artemisia Gentileschi, and I'd never heard of her before. And she's just such an inspiring figure. And I just find it fascinating to talk to her and just to understand, just to ask her, "Are you okay? How are you feeling at this time being a woman artist and all of these pressures and limitations and barriers you're facing? Are you okay? Are you feeling okay?" It would just be nice to humanize her and not just see her as this figure in art history, which rightly she is, but also a woman living and existing in time would be really cool.
I feel like she'd love a rage room.
Absolutely.
Like if you could pull her into the contemporary, like take her to a rage room.
Oh my God. Axe throwing? That would be amazing. That would be so good. It'd be like Judith and Holofernes in real life.
Yeah,
brilliant.
How about you, Amelia? My love is Tessa Boffin, who is just this amazing photographer. She worked in the 80s and 90s and is most known for her Angelic Rebel series, which was featured at the Women in Revolt show. And I think it's now been acquired by Tate as well. And she does these amazing photographs. I mean, the one that I did, I studied her A Lover's Distance Fragments, which was this photo essay, and to have this kind of artwork which combined both my passion of English literature and like analysing words and picking out details, and then going and analysing the images and seeing about the relations between the two and how she presented this kind of melancholy portrayal of love breaking down was just so emotional. And I just like in love with her work. So to be able to meet her and to be able to have a conversation and hear about all her different inspirations. I mean, I went to her archive when I did my dissertation down in Farnham, and to see all those materials, to see her notepad that she'd write all these different ideas down and all the things that she was producing and all the things that she was going to produce, it was just so emotional. And I think so affirming as like a queer person to like see what she did, and it's just incredible. And I really hope she's shown more in more galleries because her work is just amazing.
Great. Thank you both so much for coming on All About Art, for sharing your experiences, for sharing why a student-led gallery, the Norman Ray Gallery, has been so important and instrumental in your careers. And thank you for coming down to London today.
Thank you. No, it was a great time on the LNER.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
And that is it for today on All About Art. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave me a rating or a review, as it helps more people discover the show. Also, feel free to share with your friends, or if you share on social media, tag me and get in touch. Thank you so much for listening.